Our next guest is actually a first. I'm pretty excited to announce this is the first guy that's still on active duty that's coming on the show. Keep in mind that because of that, there's certain details that he's not going to be able to talk about to the same level of depth that some of our other guests have gone into.
Everything I say is just my own opinion and not necessarily a representation of the any official DOD or Air Force messaging.
How many times did they make you rehearse that before you came on here?
I rehearsed it all the way up here on the drive. Right?
What's your biggest fuck up in the military?
Probably coming on this podcast.
Is that right? Can you say where you went?
We went a number of places.
I can very comfortably say that this is the coolest and most unique coin anybody's ever given me, and one that for 1,000% sure I will cherish and hold dear my whole fucking life. Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast, as well as introduce you to the challenge winner, Chandler from Kansas, who is the individual that won the contest or promotion for our holiday giveaway, which is getting to sit in on a podcast, which obviously this is the one he's sitting on, and then we're going to go fuck up some barbecue afterwards. So congratulations to Chandler. You may hear him pipe in for a question or two during the episode, but he's got the box seats at this one. Our next guest is actually a first. I'm pretty excited to announce this is the first guy that's still on active duty that's coming on the show. So it's kind of a first and a treat for us. Keep in mind that because of that, there's certain details that he's not going to be able to talk about to the same level of depth that some of our other guests have gone into, as well as we're not going to mention his last name. So just keep that in mind. He has spent 17 years as a special operations weatherman, and now he's a special reconnaissance training cadre. Now, before you start trying to bust his balls, realize that the weather component and what he does now, special reconnaissance-wise, is a huge part of special operations, generally speaking. He's been awarded an ARCOM with V for Valor. He is the co-host of the One's Ready podcast. His head is always up in the clouds, and this motherfucker can make it rain without a green screen. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Trent from One's Ready.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And before we get started, everything I say is just my own opinion and not necessarily a representation of the any official DOD or Air Force messaging.
How many times did they make you rehearse that before you came on here?
I rehearsed it all the way up here on the drive.
Yeah. So 7 fucking hours of that?
Yep.
I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just all around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us. And so thank you to you guys. I'd like to take a second to shout out our newest sponsor, which is Project Warpath. This is a Navy SEAL-owned company that provides apparel with a pretty edgy feel, and it's a good friend of mine that runs it out of California. And just overall a great outfit. They've got a whole line of different shirts. One of which is arguably my favorite, which is Epstein didn't kill himself. Wonder where that one came from. And but yeah, there's Hillary Clinton killed my friends. There's a bunch of pretty edgy and cool patriotic sayings on T-shirts with good design, good high quality, and it's one that I'm actually wearing right now. So I appreciate them sponsoring the show again. That's Project Warpath. You can get all their stuff online, and the shipping and customer service is top notch, quality product, and you're supporting a veteran-owned business. So shout out to Project Warpath. Go check their stuff out. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live, using the discount code MicDrop at checkout. That's 2 words, MicDrop at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times, most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support. What's your favorite type of cloud?
I mean, I'm going to nerd out. It's the Nimbo Stratus because it can change etages, so it can change from one level to the other.
Etages? That's what levels? Is that a fancy word for level?
Right. So clouds at different levels do different things, and we're getting right into weather in the beginning of it, so this is awesome.
Fucking A. What you got to fucking go a little more in depth on that then. School us dipshits as it relates to weather on the type of cloud you're talking about.
Well, so the Nimbo Stratus can start out in the middle etage and it can lower itself, which is the only cloud that can change. Like at sea level, I believe the lowest etage is like surface to 6,500 feet or something.
Is there a reason other than self-importance that weather folks call them etages and not levels?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that sounds like just making shit up to sound fancier.
The weather doctors decided that we should, just like regular doctors, you have to have fancy words so people are impressed.
That's fucking great. What's your biggest fuck up in the military?
Probably coming on this podcast.
Is that right?
I'm just kidding.
Well, now that sounds like a challenge.
It's hard to say. There's been so many. We hit it all the time on our podcast. Like failure is part of life, and if I'm not big on regret, I don't look back at a lot of things if I've learned from it and feel bad about it because life is messy and you're gonna mess up. So I'm trying to think. I lost a radio on a training jump one time, and my team had to line up and walk around it to try to find my radio. It came right in my pouch. Yep.
Yeah, where was it in relation to where you thought it was?
It was in the middle of the drop zone.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it fell out like on the jump?
I think it fell out afterwards when I was packing up the chute. It's dark.
Yeah.
And you have all that silk and you're trying to shove it into your bag and you're trying to get back to your rally point as quick as possible. So it came out, and so I got back to where we're going, and I was checking all my gear and my radio was gone.
God damn. How much shit? How long did it take for them to find it?
It probably took us an hour and a half.
And how much shit did you catch?
A fair bit.
Did you get your ass beat?
But it's one of those things where if I remember the team leader coming up to me, and this was a pretty big moment in my career because I felt like a piece of crap. And the cadre were like, "You owe us a case of beer," so I did. I ended up getting him a case of beer. But he was like, "Everybody has that day. That day will come for everyone, and as long as it's not a habit, then it's fine." So that kind of helped form that lack of regret in my mind.
Yeah.
Just moving forward.
Did you get your ass beat for it or no?
Not that I'm going to talk about here. I've never, no.
Don't give me the no hazing bullshit. So in that same vein, I lost I was the intelligence rep in 2 platoons at Team 3, and right before deployment, I misplaced, in air quotes, a night vision lens for a camera. Now, mind you, this was back in what was it, 2000. So, you know, the technology back then was quite elementary compared to what it is now, but they were even bigger and more expensive and harder to come by. But my OIC at the time recalled me from leave. What had ended up happening was our sister platoon, the intel rep, fucking stole it out of our mill van. They deployed 2 weeks before we did because they were a land based, whereas we were going on a ship. So they flew over 2 weeks ahead of time, and he, I don't know if he lost his or misplaced it or for sure. I mean, he meant to take it. Like you can't fuck that up. It's not like we had our shit stored together, but or at least not close enough for it to matter. But so same thing, dude. I felt like the biggest fucking shit bag in the world, and it was basically like, well, you know, either you find it or you're not going on fucking deployment kind of thing, you know. And so, you know, I scoured the fucking all of our shit was loaded on ships. And I scoured the mill vans, and you know, I'm in off leave. I'm in there by myself, sweating fucking bullets, like digging through all of our shit on this boat in the San Diego Bay at 32nd Street Naval Base, trying to find this fucking thing. And finally, I call this dickhead that was already over in Bahrain. I was like, dude, I'm missing my phone. He was like, oh yeah, I have it. And I was like, you motherfucker. But anyway, so
did he get beat?
No, actually, he didn't. He did one platoon and got out, and was kind of one of those guys that you know didn't really fit that well, I think, with the community, and so didn't stick around very long. But at any rate, yeah, it was a mess. But I feel your pain there. My OIC made me fucking pay for that for pretty much the entire deployment.
Jeez.
What is your favorite pistol and rifle, as well as the round? Now, I'm going to caveat that with you only get to pick one, and it's as all-purpose as possible. Apocalypse scenario, like, you know, you have one pistol and one rifle for as many applications as possible, and what round for each?
It's going to be the Glock 19, just because I'm super familiar with it, and there's a lot of 9mm in people's hands right now. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking apocalypse scenario, I'm going to go with a round that can be replenished as things go crazy. And then I know I'm going to catch flack for this, but I'm going to pick an AK variant with a 7.62x39, just for closer quarters. I know it's a slower round, but it's reliable.
It's nasty.
Yeah, and you know, you can throw those things down in the mud, and those will cycle through all the dirty rounds and everything that you put it through. So
no, I'm not mad at that. I have an SBR AK that's a bad motherfucker. It's a M97 Yugo crank from Rifle Dynamics. Shout out to those guys. It's a fucking great gun. And I agree. Like it's a pretty fucking versatile round. I dig it for sure. Any type of actual rounds that you use in terms of brand or grain wise ballistically that you prefer, or are you still of it's green tip and ball because I'm in the fucking military and we don't fuck with any of that?
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple person, so I don't get into the high speed rounds or anything like that yet.
Wait till you get out.
Yeah, I'll get hobbies after I get out.
Yeah. What best operational boots?
Solomon's.
Any particular model or just fucking straight up?
No, I mean
the catch me, fuck me soccer ones?
No. It's just the kind of like what Chandler's wearing over there, I believe.
Look at that shit.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I noticed things.
Fucking, do you know what shoes I'm wearing?
I didn't catch that, actually.
Check that shit out. I'm not going to tell you.
Sorry.
It's going to be a secret.
Chandler was asking me to look him up and down, so I kind of had to notice.
Check me out. What is your morning routine?
Well, we have two small kids, so my wife and I kind of schedule our workouts in the morning around each other so that one of us is always home. And then it's, you know, get the kids ready for school, get through that chaos. And right now during COVID, then it's come home and get behind the computer.
Yeah, so, bathe in hand sanitizer and then get behind the computer.
Yeah, hit that cardio a few times a week and make sure I'm, you know, posterior chain and balanced and everything like that. I
definitely want to talk about COVID and the military and the impacts that has, and get some of your opinions on that. We'll get into that in a bit. But in terms of the morning routine, you mentioned your wife and working out. Is she in the military also, or
she is? She's also active duty.
Yeah. What? Give me the fucking down and dirty Reader's Digest on how that fucking panned out.
Well, we met when I came down to Florida for some training, the same training I lost the radio on. And I was down there, you know, I was pretty focused. I'm like, all I'm going to do is train and work out.
She was turned on by, this guy loses shit. I like that.
Well, we met like the first day I was down there. So it's just one of those things. We met and then we started hanging out and that was that.
How long were you there? But when you lost the radio,
That was one of our very first things. We had our jump week.
so you met her before that happened,
Right.
Did you tell her when it happened?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you hid that shit,
don't- I
didn't
don't
you? You didn't
know.
tell her that shit. Does she even know now?
I might have told her because I had to go into work early one day to pick up a case of beer for the cadre.
She doesn't even know now.
She probably doesn't know.
Can you say what she does?
She's an officer, so she's a Mustang.
You're fraternizing.
Well, we were enlisted first, and then she went to the dark side. So
Shit.
it's interesting.
So how does that affect the dynamic at home at all?
No,
Like you're not popping fucking salute. Like if you're at work, like how does that fucking pan out?
I mean, it's jokes. I did throw her the first salute when she first commissioned, and I told her this is the only time I'm ever gonna salute you.
She didn't even salute you back, did she? She Joe Biden your ass.
Yeah, she's just like, get out of here, scum. You're sweaty.
That's fucking great. In terms of the workouts and I'm curious, I guess, how big of an impact with all of this COVID shit is the working out now? Is it like you guys are doing your own thing? You're not doing group stuff because of that, or what? How the fuck does that work?
Yeah, well, I'm on staff now, so I'm working from home like 99% of the time.
Are most in that position, if they're not like mission critical,
Right.
they're all doing from home? That's fucking wild, man.
So all the cadre that are with the students, they've been pushing through the entire time, dealing with all that stuff. But one day, I think, what was it, March? They were like, "You're not coming to work anymore." And my wife was actually deployed at the time, so it was weird. So I was at home with the two kids.
God, Mr. Mom, were you ironing grilled cheeses and fucking?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
The kids are super sick of corn dogs still.
Stapling the fucking whoopee together. That's it's hard to even fucking imagine, honestly, like how the military has bended to these policies. It's fucking nuts. Do you know anybody at work that's gotten it and gotten like legitimately sick?
Yeah, there's been a few people. Mostly the older people are a little more susceptible, but it just depends on the person. Like some people are like, I got tired, I think, or I had a headache.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing. And some people are down for the count for a few weeks and it jacks up their lungs or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's hard to nail down what's going to happen.
Yeah. Where are you originally from?
Utah, Salt Lake Valley.
Are you a Mormon?
I was.
You were a Mormon.
I
there's so
grew
much to
up that
fucking
way.
Dig into this. Tell me about being a Mormon in Utah.
It was
And is there anybody that doesn't ask you that once they hear you're from Utah?
no. I used to have it down, and I've forgotten over the years. But I used to say, "I'm from Utah," and that'd be like, "Yes, yes, no, yes," to like the questions. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty normal childhood. I have a lot of siblings. It's a competitive culture, which I think played well into my military career.
Yeah.
But it's just like any other religion. There's rules, there's misconceptions, there's everything like that. But I grew up in the Salt Lake Valley in like the late '80s and the '90s, so it was a pretty good place to grow up.
Yeah. What I guess in terms of how hardline your family was, because I know like every religion, like there's some. I would say, I mean, I've known a few Mormons and have actually been fairly close friends with a few of them over the years. And I was actually really impressed with just kind of how diligent they are on all aspects of their life. Like they were just really good people. They took really good care of their families and each other and their communities. And, they weren't selfish. They were super polite, prepared, would help you out. They didn't fuck around. They didn't give you any shit. They weren't assholes. I mean, like by and large, it was enormously positive, but there's a curiosity there, I think, with most people in terms of some of the stigmas associated with it that that probably lend themselves to some of the almost mythical fucking misconceptions about it. But where did you and your family fall in line in terms of the spectrum of how hardline Mormon you were?
Well, I think if we were Catholics, my mother would be a saint.
that good, huh?
She's just that person, My dad, he'd been in the Air Force for a few years, and he was kind of a wild child when he was younger. But growing up, he was always pretty solid in it.
Yeah.
It just was what it was, and for me, it was like they say, do what you're good at.
Yeah.
So that's that wasn't something I was.
So I went
really
into
good
fucking porn, and here I am in the Air Force.
Not that far, but
Yeah. Well, how many siblings do you have?
I have 5 brothers.
5 brothers, no sisters.
No
huh?
sisters.
God damn. Where do you fall in the pecking order age wise?
I'm number 3.
Number 3.
So I have middle child syndrome, and I'm also the runt. So I also have like that Napoleonic
still?
thing. Oh yeah.
You're still by far. No shit. What was that like growing up? Just generally speaking, I guess, in terms of school, and like, did you go to public school or was it?
Yep. Well, I went to public school until high school. Then I basically burned everything academically in junior high, and was doing stuff
That's not very Mormon of you.
maybe I shouldn't have been doing. So my parents pulled me out and put me in this like private high school that was like a mix between homeschooling and school. So
Was it Mormon affiliated or?
no, it was like a Christian thing.
Yeah.
But you only went 3 days a week for 4 hours a day. So basically, you went in there and got your stuff graded, and they gave you homework.
Yeah. So about like now then.
Right.
Yeah, fucking writing on the wall. I'm curious. The big main fucking tabernacle there in Salt Lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal with not being able to go in there? Like, isn't there some crazy fucking rules with that?
The temples you cannot go in without a temple recommend. So
What does that mean exactly?
it means that you have to be following enough of the rules to go in there.
Is it like 80% or what?
I don't know.
You don't know?
It's
You've
not-
been in there, right?
Yeah, before they dedicate them, they give people tours.
Yeah.
So you can go in when they build like a new one, and they'll show you all the stuff, and they're incredibly beautiful, incredibly well made. But yeah, and after that, after it's dedicated, you have to go see your bishop, or it's like your priest, and they interview you, and you tell them everything, and then they're like, okay, yes or no.
How do they know that you're not bullshitting them?
They don't.
So they're just taking your word.
There's stuff that I guess is going to be handled on the other side.
Are they using Mormon construction crews to make those?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
Yeah. Why am I asking all these questions? Chandler, you got any Mormon questions?
No.
Nothing? All right. Well, if you think of one, little input from the contest winner. Did you play any sports growing up?
Soccer.
Did all your brothers play it, or?
No, my oldest brother, he was pretty good at it. So I modeled myself after him a fair bit. You have your heroes growing up, and so my oldest brother's about 5 years older than me. So he played soccer, I played soccer, and it was fairly competitive until I blew my knee out.
Yeah. Is the relationship with your brothers now different from when you were growing up? Like how was it then, and how is it now by contrast?
I mean, we were brothers, so
Beating the shit out of each other.
yeah, but in retrospect, it was a good thing. I've actually reached back to my oldest brother and been like, hey, I want to thank you for giving me the tools to be successful in this community.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, pain management, I learned that from you.
That would imply that you've been hazed.
No, it's just a hard job, right?
Is that right? Is that all it is?
There's
you
no
really
hazing
can't
in the
talk
military.
about any of that shit?
No, I mean, what if you want to? Like when I got to my
Hell yeah,
first my first SAUT duty station, you go through the processes, and I had a helmet I had to carry around with me, a helmet that has no name, and you go through all the things, and there was an obstacle course, and there was eggs and I think squid legs involved, and questions. And then based on how many obstacles or how many times you jacked up, they, on the board, you get so many push-ups. So for like a few months, I was, not really a few months, a few weeks, while everybody else went out to lunch, I would guard my helmet and knock out thousands of push-ups before my cherry blast.
So that's the current day Air Force.
No, that was 2006. So
Even in 2006, that's what the Air Force is considering hazing.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, it wasn't hazing.
This is
It was
coming from
team
a guy.
building.
We had fucking Tabasco poured on our nuts and ass, and we were electrocuted with a mini blast machine. We got beat with fucking paddles and taped up and drugged down the hallway with happy hats. I mean, we got the fuck beat out of us, all the time. Like, it was brutal. But
That's a birthday party.
I mean, that was, anytime you fucked up, if it was your birthday, we had a guy that didn't tell us as a platoon that he got married, which is like, cardinal fucking sin. So they shaved his body. He was a hairy motherfucker the same way I am. They shaved his body and then took, shooting targets, used spray glue to put fucking targets on plastic targets or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they took spray glue and sprayed it all over his face and gave him a beard with his body hair and spray glue. And then, Tabasco down his fucking ass crack and, threw him in a fucking cruise box full of water with a regulator and about fucking drowned him. I mean, it was fucking brutal. Force feeding him alcohol for 6 hours straight, like 2 bottles of fucking the cheapest tequila you can buy. I mean, just completely fucked him up, which, he deserved it under those circumstances in my book. But it's amazing to me the transition militarily, even in the community that I came from, in terms of the lack of stuff like that nowadays and how off limits all that shit is. It's wild. But is there, going back to your family just for a minute, I can only assume that your father had some influence on you joining the Air Force, or?
Right. Well, growing up, he told all of us that he did not want us to join the military. So
like a good son, you were like, yeah, fuck you, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, he did not enjoy being enlisted for some reason. I have a lot of similar character traits that he has.
Yeah.
But it's just a weird thing. I joined and he told me later, he's like, I didn't think you were going to thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I found what I found and it found me, and that was that. And he's still, I think, amazed to this day that I'm still in.
Yeah. That's fucking great. Any of your siblings serve?
Right. Yep. My brother just older than me and my brother just younger than me.
Both Air Force too, or?
Right.
Yeah.
What
do they do?
One tour and got out. One was security forces like a cop, and the other one was a linguist.
Oh, okay. Fucking covering all the bases Air Force wise in the family. What did your dad do?
He was like supply, I think, or something like that.
Well, rock and roll. All right, so some motivation to serve from your dad. What was the process like from going from high school into ultimately enlisting, and kind of your decision to do so?
Well, I graduated in '99. I took off a year early. With the private school, you could kind of decide to graduate whenever you wanted. But if you said you were going to graduate that year, there was a lot of stipulations that went along with that. So you had to like do all your assignments and all that other stuff. Anyway, I got out of high school a year early. And then I paid some colleges to go to their parties for a while, and I worked.
What college?
It was like a community college. And then, 2003, we invaded Iraq, and I was kind of done with everything. I was selling cars. And
what kind of cars?
Chevys, Oldsmobiles, Hummers. When the H2 first came out, those were pretty easy to sell. And Cadillacs.
All domestic stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, I kind of hit the end of the rope. I was like, I'm going nowhere. And so I went and saw the recruiter. I took all the tests. I took the D lab. He didn't want to talk to me in the beginning. It was 2003, so the Air Force was not having a hard time getting people in.
Yeah.
And so I walked in. He was disinterested until I took the ASVAB and the D lab, the language test. And then all of a sudden he was very, very interested. And so I actually joined as a linguist. And then I got to basic, and they were like, yeah, we looked at your record for real, and you can't get a TS out the gate.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I had some stuff.
What kind of stuff?
I jacked up all my finances and some other things, and I was running with the wrong crowd for a while.
Like cartel guys?
No.
Are you a cartel guy?
No.
No, allegedly. What? So they were basically like, you're too fucked up financially to be a linguist, so you should go be this instead. Did they direct you towards the weather stuff, or did that?
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. They gave me 5 options. Like, they'd give me a secret, but just, like, you're an unknown. So if you have anything, they're not going to give you a TS right out the gate. So they gave me 5 options. I picked weather because I figured it would change.
What were the other 4?
I had, stealth avionics. One of them was like a dental assistant or dental admin person, which I was like, I should have gone that and worked in an office and got my doctorate by now. But I chose weather, and that kind of led me down the path.
It seems like an obscure mix for them to offer. Was it just based off of those were the needs of the Air Force? Like, here's the top 5 fucking jobs that were the lowest in numbers on, or what?
Right. Well, I had a pretty good ASVAB score. Nothing crazy. And it's not like the ASVAB is a difficult test. Yeah. So anything that required over 60 on the ASVAB, I was qualified for. And
so at that time what was the weather community called? What was it? Special operations weather at that time? Or it sounds like it was kind of you were in the formative years of the program existing, right? Right.
So when I joined, special operations weather was more like a special duty assignment for weather guys.
Okay.
So weather school was about 7 months long. So I make it through basic and all this other stuff. I thought I was joining the military. I thought about joining the Marines, but I didn't. So Air Force basic training was a little bit of a letdown physically. And then I was in tech school, and it wasn't hard. And then one day they told us to go downstairs for a briefing, and there's some dudes with gray berets talking about getting shot at and jumping out of planes. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So tell me what I got to do, and I'm going to do it. And that was that.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
And so was that the start of that program, or was it already existing and they were just bringing you into the fold?
So the special operations weather side of the house, we trace our roots back to like WW2, like everybody else. We had airborne weather guys and guys going on the, what are they called? The gliders.
Yeah.
And, and then Vietnam, we had some pretty cool stuff that happened, but it was one of those things that was not formalized and was kind of back and forth. So by the time I joined, we were linked up with, we were linked up with all the special forces groups, and also with the 160th. So you had to become a weather guy first, and then once you were like a qualified weather guy, after your first duty station, you just volunteered to go over and go through airborne and SEER and all that.
So is it kind of a scenario where basically you have the qualification that they need, and now they're bringing you in and kind of putting you through all the stuff that they want you to be through, similarly to the way they put techs through at tier 1,
right?
Tier 1 outfits, right?
Right.
So you've gone through all of the same stuff, or what are the portions, I guess, that they don't send you through that?
Well, my experience was a little unique. I got to brag. And a few weeks after I got there, I went to a shooting school for a week, and then we turned around and went up to Fort Campbell for 6 weeks of training, and then I deployed. So I was pretty undertrained to be going out there.
Welcome to the Air Force.
I was supposed to go to that school in Florida where I met my wife before I deployed, and that's what I was told was going to happen before I deployed ever. Where we went through that with the combat controllers at the end of their pipeline, but one of our guys got shot, and so they're like, "We need a body. You're technically trained enough to deploy, so." Adios.
Can you say where you went?
Yeah, I went to Afghanistan.
And so I'm curious, out of my own ignorance, so how do you incorporate into those units? And is it with CCTs and PJs, or what? Where are you embedded in at that point?
It's usually whether it's a TAC P. So we have 2 different AFSCs or career fields in the Air Force that do the JTAC role.
Can you explain JTAC for the listener, just so that a lot of the acronyms and shit, most people are like,
right.
What the fuck does that mean?
It's the Joint Terminal Attack Controller. So they're the ones that talk to the airplanes and drop the bombs on the bad guys and save all our lives. And it's an amazing capability. So it's usually those guys with the team. So we just jump on a team with them. So when I was heading out to the FOB, I was on the bird with a combat controller that was replacing Adam Service, who had been killed out there. And I was replacing a weather guy that had been shot out there. And I had 7 total weeks of training besides airborne and SEER.
Yeah.
And I was a weather guy, so it was pretty interesting.
Do you know the circumstances with which the weather guy that was shot?
Yep. They there was a firefight broke out. I think one of the checkpoints was attacked. So everybody jumped in the Humvees and then went out there, and they got into a big fight. I think they were on their way back, and they hit a second ambush. And actually, his calf was in front of someone's head when he jumped on the back of a Humvee. And the round hit his calf and deflected and didn't hit this dude in the head.
No shit.
So they had a pretty positive.
So you got a life-saving medal too.
Right. Well, it was a weird time. He actually got in a little bit of trouble because having weather guys outside the wire was controversial. So I don't think he was technically supposed to be outside the wire at the time, or he didn't tell his bosses or enough of his bosses that he was going. But the team is like, if you're at the FOB and the team's like, let's go. And you're a squared away guy, you just go. But it all worked out in the end for him.
Yeah, god damn. So you jump in, fucking, what's going through your mind? Like, you're like, holy fuck, what am I doing here?
I was scared out of my mind. So I went to Qandahar for a little bit and did backside support. And I remember telling one of the Green Berets I was hanging out with, I was like, they're like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to Cobra, And I don't know anything about anything.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to pick up the acronyms, the lingo of the soft community. And I remember he just looked at me and he was like, bro, keep your head down. I was like, oh, okay. This is going to be fun.
So what did you do? Like, once you got there, how does that work in essence? Like, walk us through a typical day, an operation cycle of where you fall into the mix and how you get involved.
Yeah. So most of my job, as a weather guy, you have like a strategic or operational level job, and then you have your tactical job. So obviously on the tactical side, I'm trying to take care of the teammates that I'm with and help them out with the missions that they're planning. And then for the operational and strategic side, I'm trying to send back weather observations and stuff like that to the people back in the rear, like Qandahar and Bagram, so they can plan out and get their weather forecasts and all that stuff done, and the bosses can plan. So, I'm taking a lot of weather observations. We had some SADE guys out there and that kind of stuff, so their equipment was sensitive. We had PSYOPs guys, and they wanted to put out forecasts for the locals and all that kind of stuff, like the Farmer's Almanac kind of thing for them. And then the rest of it's just being a team guy, unloading the helicopters. I got really good at cleaning 240s. You have to find something that you're good at.
Yeah.
And then just, living that life and doing whatever needs to be done.
How many instances did you go outside the wire and do things with unit and team members?
We went a few times.
What any of them of note?
Yeah. We went out early one morning one time and we drove ourselves into an ambush. And that ended up being an all-day affair. So this is where the calm with the V came from. We drove into the first ambush point, and it's funny because I was on the back of the Sade truck, and I'm not going to talk a lot about what Sades do, but it has antennas sticking up all over it, so it's an obvious target. And most of the gun trucks that we had at the time had 240s mounted on the back on swing arms. This one did not. So it was senior airman signaler. What?
Fucking sitting duck.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in the open back with my M4. And so we pull up to the ambush point, and the guy on top swings around the Mark 19, the grenade launcher. That thing launches 2 rounds before it seizes up. So the first time I'd ever really been shot at, and the first time I ever shot back, the guy that was supposed to be covering down for the vehicle, his main goes down. He tells me to cover him. So I pop up over the top of the Humvee with my M4 and try to go to work. So, but it was good. Like that 1 week shooting school I went to, if you don't mind my shouting out.
Yeah. Shout them out.
Rifles only here in Texas. I could hear my instructor's voice in my head, and he was really good. So Andrew's voice was like, breathe, side alignment, side picture, everything, squeeze, and then keep your head on a swivel and maintain your situational awareness.
What was your kit at the time, loadout wise?
Oh, it was garbage.
What? And this was 06, 07?
06.
And so what were you carrying?
I had my plates and then the Rhodesian over the top of it. So I was carrying 6+1 M4 mags, and then the 2+1 M9 mags with we're still rolling with the Berettas.
Jesus, fucking Berettas.
Yep.
Did you dump your whole fucking loadout in that gun battle, or?
No, I went through a few mags. And then it's kind of an all-day affair. So we get up to the second point, and they're maneuvering on us, and they're calling in gun runs. And this is the first time that I found out that people actually cheer when A-10s come in and schwack all the bad guys. Yeah. I thought that was just a movie thing, but it's not. It's super exciting when it happens.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to the JTAC and all that, and then my radio loses its fill, and then we're running out of ammo. And we dumped a ammo truck back at a checkpoint, and so like, where's the weather guy? Because it was a beautiful day, so I didn't need to be like updating anybody on the weather. So they throw me in another Humvee.
Where's the weather guy?
To go get the ammo truck. So I jump in this other Humvee, and we go back through the first ambush line, and the main weapon, I think it was a 50, had been shot. So they throw me a thumper. So it's a 40 mic from like Vietnam, like from Terminator 2.
Fucking M79.
Wooden stock. Yep.
Yeah, fucking that's one of my favorite guns. How's that for old school?
Yeah,
I love that shit.
It bucks. And so we go back through the first ambush line, and then I hop out and I jump in the ammo truck and bring it back up to our line of Humvees up there and start handing out ammo. So, and then I was stuck driving that truck, and that had no doors, no armor, full of explosive and ammunition. So it was a pretty good.
Do you know what the circumstances were in terms of how they were ambushing you? How many people? What their kind of MO was, other than just fucking with you? I mean, if you can kind of walk us through, almost like it's a fucking movie scene, if you will, of you pull up and you start taking rounds from X, and then kind of that scenario, so we all understand kind of what you went through in that case. Yeah,
we crossed over a river past the checkpoint, and we're going down this valley, and on our right side there were these really tall mountains. On the left side, it kind of played out into a valley. So from our front and from our right, per direction we were driving, we got jumped by, they claim it was about 200 guys. And so we're taking small arms, PKM, and RPGs. So we kind of sat in that first position for a while, the mad minute, and everybody dumps all their ammo and keeps shooting. Then a bunch of the Green Berets, they dismounted. They went and schwacked a bunch of people, and then I covered down on my vehicle, and then we moved up to the second point. So like there was a point where there was like a bazaar up there in this like valley where they were moving things through. And so we move up to like the edge of that valley, and then they hit us from another ambush point to the front of us. And then there's a bunch more A-10 gun runs and all that stuff. And then I actually ended up being rear security for the convoy at that point, because one of the other vehicles, like, we're getting our main weapons shot up. So there's a bunch of 50s down and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm sitting in the back with my M4, just watching the back. And I remember at one point, the whole vehicle kind of jumped, like something hit us. And I wasn't sure what it was, and I couldn't find it. And come to find out, when we got back to base 3 days later, I looked behind me, and someone tried to shoot me, I'm pretty sure with a Dragunov, because it went right through that 1/4-inch steel from the up armored Humvees, and it was right behind my head.
God damn.
I'm kind of glad I didn't know at the time, because I was just like, what just hit us? But, just keep doing your job.
Fuck, man. That's intense shit. So after that, did you keep, two things, I guess. What was the ultimate reason you guys were there in the first place? Like, what was the objective to begin with? And then two, did you ultimately meet that objective, or did the ambush turn it into a long fucking gunfight and then you ended up going back?
No, it was about a 6-hour gunfight, but we did our job. I think they were moving supplies and personnel through that valley, through the Yakdan Bazaar. So half the team stayed on one side. After I'd come back with the resupply truck and distributed as much ammo as I could, and we kept fighting. And then after the end of that, half the team was moving to the other side of the valley, to our Ron site. And this is the place where Adam Service had been killed and a bunch of other stuff had happened. It was a rough area. So my radio had lost its fill, the old emitters. So I had no crypto and I had no comms. And so I hop in my truck and I start driving across this valley with the guys that I'm assuming I'm supposed to be with. The truck in front of me turns around and goes back to the other half of the team. I can't communicate with anybody, so I'm just going to keep following the Humvee that's ahead of me. So I drive through this valley and we took some fire, and I think that's the only time I ever shot my M9, because I was just trying to keep someone's head, had no doors. Yeah. And I remember in some of the training they talked about your femoral artery and how easy it is to bleed out from that, and the space you have on the side of your body armor. You don't want to get hit in the side of the ribs and tumble through your lungs and your heart and everything. So I'm slouched down in my chair, trying to shoot my M4 out the left door. I'm trying to throw rounds out my right door. I'm not hitting anything.
This is like gangbanger shit.
It was.
You got a pistol outside the doorless fucking vehicle.
Yeah, and but
why isn't that on the Air Force brochure?
I don't know.
It should be. God damn it. That's
when I cashed in all my mom's prayers in that moment. Everybody has that moment, I think, where you kind of look up and you're like, I don't want to die in this stupid valley. So I know that my mom and God are tight, so I kind of cashed all those in to make it to the other side of the valley, and squirters, and we stayed out there for a couple more days after that.
And what do you know? Well, I guess, did you guys lose any guys? And do you know what the count was on the other side, or how did it diffuse ultimately?
I think we killed most of them. We had a chief lose his thumb, and it's pretty funny. This guy was like a life-size GI Joe. He's the chief warrant officer, so It is what it is. But he kicked in a door, and one of the other guys tells a funny story. They were like behind a wall, and this other Green Beret goes to call in, say where they're at, check in with the boss, and he turns around, the chief's gone, and all he hears is a bunch of shooting, and then chief comes up on comms and screaming, and we're like, oh no, chief got hit. This other guy goes and finds him and finds chief shooting his pistol over another wall, and his thumb is shot off. He kicked in a door, and apparently there were like 5 Afghans in there. And, so he opens up, they open up. And for anybody that's never been through like a shoot house or anything, your hands get chewed up because everybody focuses on the weapon. So he lost his thumb. He drew his secondary and started shooting and then hopped behind this wall. But I think he got all those dudes. So that was our only casualty, was a thumb. And then I think Intel told us they estimated 82 casualties on their side.
Were most of those via the gun runs on the A10, or
we had a fair number of small arms.
Yeah. So they were the Green Berets you were with were battling it out pretty hard, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing good stuff.
So once that finally dissipated to the point where you guys could return, you go back, and then what was the rest of that deployment like?
Yeah, it was weird. After that, I think the team went out on another mission a few days later and got into a fight, but half of our artillery guys, we had 105s out there, had gone on leave. At the time, the Army was sending people out for like 12 to 18 months. And so those guys got leave in the middle of their deployment, which was weird. And so they were like, hey, man, stay behind with the artillery and help those guys out. So I turned into an artillery bunny.
Oh, sure.
Like I told you, I'm like a tourist. I've kind of delved into a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And so they got into a fight a couple miles away. And so I was able to throw some rounds down, and they say we schwacked like 10 dudes with the 105s. So I wasn't there, but it was kind of fun being on the other side of it. And
those 105s are no fucking joke.
Right. Yeah.
And those are legit for sure. All right. So I'm curious in terms of what, getting into kind of the weeds of what you do from the weather standpoint on deployment, I think a lot of people don't even realize that, special operations units employ weather, but also realizing, especially like if you go back to World War II, how big of a role, the weather played, and B, lack of the technology that we have now, and having forward operating, weather experts to help dictate when to go and not to go, like how big of a fucking deal that is. And I think, you joked a little bit about it, initially, but it is a big fucking deal. I mean, weather was especially, if you go back to, the days of say the Spartans and things like that. I mean, like you're talking about major war campaigns being won and lost based off of weather patterns and shitty storms coming up that were unexpected, or certain swells and seas for Viking ships. I mean, you name it. Like it's still, even with all the technology in today's day and age, the weather is still Mother Nature and still will trump every fucking thing we can do. And I think that it's important that the listener understands how big of a deal that is and how important your job is. But if you could kind of walk us through what that is, the gear that you take, and what you do on deployment when you're not the jack of all trades doing cleaning 240s and manning fucking artillery. What is that like?
So we bring our kestrels out. So there's a few different sensors that we can set up. So we had our bigger sensor at the fob that I maintain, and then the just like every sniper has a kestrel, right? Or probably a bunch of team guys have kestrels out there. And we just keep our eye on the weather and the patterns. And like one time, for instance, the team leader was like, "Hey, this is our mission tomorrow." And I was like, "Hey, just so you're tracking, we had huge rainstorms upriver, so where we usually cross is going to be pretty rough." And I remember him looking at me like, "Yeah, sure, dude." And we went, and we almost had a few of the A&A trucks float away. And I remember he looked over at me after that and was like, "Okay, like you are tracking all this stuff. So it's not just the weather, but it's the effects after that, the trafficability and everything like that. And then getting into higher headquarters, obviously, so they can plan for future operations." But I think people don't really understand, like we don't have all weather machines. If you take a C-130, like our big cargo plane, that thing can fly through almost anything. But you take a little bird, that thing is bouncing all over the place. So like the slightest variance in weather, and especially when you've got guys on the skids and everything like that, it's incredibly important to get the data right, to get the observations right. So when you absolutely need to know what's happening on the ground, and everybody's like, "Oh, we have satellites, we have all this other technology," there's no replacement for having someone on the ground telling you exactly what's happening on the micro scale.
And how much of that, in terms of what you're interpreting, to me, I can see a parallel between, say, reading a dog and reading the weather. Now, for you listeners that are like, "Dude, are you fucking really making that parallel?" Yes, I am. And bear with me for a second. Is that, so many times I see young handlers or pet dog owners or just people that, have a dog or are fairly inexperienced, and I watch them handle the dog, and you can tell, probably just like you can walk outside and you see a lot of fucking things that almost nobody else sees, right? Is it's in that same kind of vein that way, is that, a dog is telling you a ton of shit that most people are completely fucking oblivious to. That's why kids get bit and people can't communicate to their dogs, because they just don't know what the fucking dog is saying to them, basically through their actions and nuances of body language and things like that. I'm assuming that it's similar with weather that way. So like, can you give us some examples of like when you walk outside, or like how you're interpreting things on the ground to be able to be an asset for some of these units? Right.
Well, like short term, you can look at things pretty simply. And the problem is if you see if you're in like southern Florida or Florida and you see a thunderstorm forming, determining the direction that storm is going to move is not complicated, but you need to understand that the winds at 10,000 feet, that's your steering for that thing. So you need to understand where to look to determine where that thing is going to go. And if you have dry air at that level, that means that thunderstorm has the potential to get out of control and drop hail and all that other kind of stuff. But in a typical weather pattern, your high clouds are going to come in first because they have the least resistance and the highest winds up there. And then your middle clouds and then your low clouds are going to roll in, depending on the system. So you get some warning on a lot of these stuff in like a classical system. And then you go to a place like Afghanistan and you have all those microclimates and all those valleys and all that other crap. But you have like the red desert, you have your Asiatic high and all this other stuff. So just keeping an eye on it and understanding how the patterns work. It's as much art as science to a certain extent. Will give you a better understanding of what's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 hours and how it's going to impact your operations.
So I guess how many times were there where advice or determinations that you gave based off of what you were observing and kind of predicting, did that actually change what the guys were going to do based off, you're like, hey, I think this is going to happen? Or like, did that happen often? Weather's
one of those things where it's not an impact until it's a big impact.
Yeah.
We went up on my second deployment. We went up to the Pakistani border to do some stuff, and then we got a follow-on mission. And I told the guys, hey, if we go further north than this, it's going to get hairy weather-wise. But if we're going where we're going, like this location, we're going to be fine. So our follow-on mission was to go further north. And I remember there was this I think it was a Delta. He kept screaming at me because he was in the back of this Hilux, and it's like slushing on us. And he's yelling at me, and I'm like, I told you, bro. You just didn't listen after I told you that the first operation was going to be fine. But if we go further north, it's going to be bad. Like, I have warmies with me.
Yeah.
But he didn't bring his warmies, and he got soaked and frozen to the bone. So.
Travel light, freeze at night.
Yeah, he's pretty upset.
That's fucking awesome. Were there times where you kind of saved the day, so to speak, where you're like, hey, we can't do this, or we need to do, or whatever, and like it was instrumental having you there that really changed operations?
Not really.
So you're useless. That's what you're saying.
Basically, like we went up to a place where no one had been from Western society since Alexander the Great is what they told us. But I try to prepare my guys for the worst possible scenario, and it was cold and everything, and you make all your plans, and then you just keep checking in with higher headquarters, being like, no, weather's holding. This is good. Any updates? No. Okay, so exfil is still going to be on this day. And the further ahead you can get on these things, the easier it is, because you do all your work on the front end, and then just roll out with the team. Things should be good, and
So like with a lot of things, it's just proper planning and preparation is what keeps things from you needing to make any adjustments.
Right. I shouldn't have to make adjustments, otherwise I failed.
Yeah. No, that's good shit. What in terms of the gear that you bring, you mentioned the Kestrel. Are there other things that like what is a deployment loadout for you as it relates to just strictly weather?
I mean that's it. We have old satellite systems, and you can set up at the larger bases. You can set up sensors. We have some small sensors that we can set up in different places. My last deployment, we went out there to a place with some people and
that
set
sounds
up
specific.
Yeah, set up some sensors for some stuff. But what I load out personally is just my Kestrel, and knowing what I'm doing and having all your cheat sheets and everything like that. I can still draw a pretty accurate map of Afghanistan and tell you how the weather's going to impact everything.
So most of it is just knowledge that you possess personally and internally that you're using in experience with being able to read the weather on the ground standing there, huh?
Right.
Yeah, that's wild shit. All right, so that first deployment to Afghanistan, very little training. You come back from that. What happened between that and any subsequent deployments? Did you get more kind of operator training?
Right. So when I got back from that deployment, I had about a month before I went to the training I was supposed to go to before I went on my first deployment. And so that's when I went down to Florida for the end of the combat control pipeline. We do all their exercises and everything with them.
Is that Hurlburt?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the mecca for all things AFSOC.
Yeah.
So I went through that for a few months, and that's where I met my wife, and then right into another train up for my second rotation. And so my second rotation, they sent me out to Naray, and as kind of like a let's chill this dude out, because his first deployment was probably a little rough for a guy that had almost no training. So they sent me to a pretty nice place.
How did that contrast accordingly? I mean, was it pretty laid back, or were there a lot of things that you ended up doing there? And to me, it seems a little counterintuitive. It's like, now that the guy's got the training, we're going to send him to a place that's fucking less hairy. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there were a few things that happened. I learned some good lessons on my second deployment. So first off, I was much better at the weather stuff and understanding how it affected operations my second deployment. So I think I was a little more useful. And we were out in the Qandahar River Valley, and so the Hindu Kush are like right there, and so there was a lot more meteorological impacts on operations. But I did manage to get up to Keating for a little bit, because if you've seen the movie The Outpost, like that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
It was funny when we were watching the movie with my wife, when the guys walk out after they get there in the night, and then the next day they walk out of their hooches and look around. I had the exact same experience. It was nuts, but they were running out of supplies and everything. They're having a hard time getting helos up there. So I went up there and trained up some guys on, basic things like, hey man, when the clouds get to this point on the mountain, you need to call back so I can tell people what's happening. That's what this means. And so we're not sending helos up there that have to turn around and you guys are just hosed. But that's where I learned also that if I'm around conventional army guys, I should probably try to dress like them, because snipers like to. You think I would have learned that after the first time on the side A truck, but I didn't. And so you roll up there in like your t-shirt and your cool guy pants and your loadout. And what do you expect the snipers to do? They're gonna try to shoot you. So that was a good lesson learned. But I managed to do that and a few other things. But I was just deployed with some good people, an Air Force Cross recipient later, and then right as I was leaving, the team went up. So my replacement was inbound, and so I stayed back, which kind of hurt my feelings a little bit to meet my replacement when he got there. The team went up, and that's when Robbie Miller was killed, and he was given the Medal of Honor after that. But that kind of happened right at the end of my deployment.
And you didn't partake on that mission, huh?
I did not. I think the most I did was I cleared his weapon once we got him back. But
what can you speak to the circumstances of how that happened?
A little bit. They went up to this place where we'd been trying to get up to for a long time. We'd had a lot of ops that were turned down at the time. It was 2007 into 2008, and things were starting to get a little less cowboys and Indian-ish, at least from my perspective. And so we finally got this mission to go, and they went up into this valley and they got ambushed by a whole bunch of people. The team leader took a round in through the right next to his shoulder down into his lung, but he survived. And then Robbie was the 249 gunner, and he was covering down on a lot of guys. I think rushed to position, and he took a few rounds in through the side, through his ribs. So, but then the combat controller that was out there laid a bunch of waste and did his job and got the rest of the guys back. Yeah,
it's a fucking hairy scenario for sure. All right, so your replacement comes in. You bounce back. What was the post deployment like there? Did you end up going through more schooling, or what did that look like?
That's when that's when Special Operations Weather became its own career field to a certain extent. So that's when they were like, hey, we're going to set this up as you can come in off the streets to become Special Operations Weather. So we need a training pipeline that looks a lot like our cohorts, the combat controllers and the pararescue guys. So I went out to Keesler Air Force Base to set up the pipeline.
And how, did they take your kind of guidance on how to do that, or was it a group of you guys? Or
I was the first one to go, and it was weird. I came from, how it is on team. It's a really small community, and I was used to, I had a reputation by this point, it's not like I'm the greatest thing ever, but people would listen to what I said, and it was weird to go back to the Air Force Training Command and try to get myself back into that Air Force mentality. Yeah. I'm a staff sergeant, I'm an E5. And I'm like, no, this is what we need to do. And people are like, whatever, man, you don't know what you're talking about. So it took me a while to figure out how to get that done. Yeah. But we got it done.
Yeah. How many of you are there within the Air Force? Do you know?
Less than 150.
No shit. Mm-hmm. God damn, that's a small group. And I'm assuming that pretty much all of you are embedded in with SOF wide. Like, are there guys going with SEALs, with Rangers, Green Berets, just all over the place, kind of as needed, or?
Right. So wherever the it's going down, and they need the particular skill set that we have, that's where we go.
They whore you guys out to whoever needs you.
Right.
I guess for the other crew of the other 149 or so special operations weather folks, like how active are their deployments typically? Is it similar to the ones that you experienced?
I think it's just like everybody else. Like at the time in Afghanistan, if you were at a couple different FOBs, if you're at Anaconda, it's going to be rough. Yeah. But you could go down to like Salerno and maybe go a whole deployment without shooting anybody or getting shot at. So,
but typically, just like where they incorporate a lot of the dog teams, they're putting you guys in the areas where it's the heaviest, I'm assuming, right? Generally.
Sometimes, and also like with the way the weather patterns work, if you need to know data upstream, like the western edge of Afghanistan, we need a body, and then we need another body, further this way, or wherever we have gaps in that knowledge. And obviously we're trying to plug the gaps where, there's a lot of stuff going down. So it's kind of a mix.
Yeah. All right. So once you develop that pipeline, what does your career look like after you get that kind of where it needs to be and on step?
Yeah. So I spent 4 years as a training cadre, and we stood up the pipeline. And as an instructor, I think that's where at least I learned a lot about everything. I really, I went through the end of the combat control pipeline with those guys, and I didn't go through a selection course or any of that other stuff. And so my attitude was, I don't think I appreciated what they'd been through as much, because I could run with those guys, but they're at the end of the pipeline, but I hadn't been through the same crucible type events that they'd been through. I was just an in-shape guy that, was willing to keep going. So after standing up the pipeline and learning a lot about myself and all that, I went back on team back in Florida, and I knocked out a few more deployments before coming back to the training side of the house again, where I don't know, I like it, but I'm kind of like the career field expert on training, I guess.
Yeah. What were the subsequent deployments after that you're talking about?
So
you glossed over so quick.
Well, so being a weather guy, you can go on Green Beret deployments, or you can go with the 160th SOAR. So for my punishment, or my reward, however you look at it, for being gone for 4 years, was I got 2 160th deployments in a row, and those are not that sexy. You sit there and all you do is weather for the 160th guys. But I will say, from the outside looking in, it doesn't look cool, but those were 2 of my hardest deployments, and I love those guys.
Yeah.
The 160th is my favorite organization in the DoD.
Can you say where you were at with those guys?
Yeah, I was in Qandahar. Okay. Working with a lot of people all over the place, because I was just doing straight weather stuff. But you're working like 18-hour days, and it's one of those organizations where once your first time deployed with them, it's like, like that first month they're trying to figure out if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then once you're in the club, it's the greatest organization I've ever worked for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because it was so weather specific and less jack of all trades, were you relying on more equipment being at a base like Qandahar? Like, did you have access to better technology to do your job? And what does that look like?
Well, especially working on that side of the fence, there's like high side and then the next level of high side. Some of the technology we were able to utilize to get our forecast down was legit.
Yeah.
So like I said, like with those little birds, they want to know exactly what's going to happen. And so we had the tools to do that. But yeah.
Is there any technology, if you can even talk about it, just out of my curiosity, inside the birds weather-wise? Like, are they fairly capable in that regard, or?
Not the little birds. Yeah. Those guys there's no tech, flying by the seat of their pants. Like the 60s have a little bit of stuff, and then the 47s. There's a few times where the 47s were like, "Hey man, here's what's happening," and if there's a target that they're going after that is, they really, really want that target, and I tell them weather's crap, they're like, okay, well, is it going to be 800 meters of visibility or 700 meters of visibility? They're trying to nail it down. Right.
No, yeah, the 160th guys, every time we worked with them, I was always just fucking blown away by how good they are. I mean, I don't think you can overstate that unit as a capability. They're just beyond fucking world class. For those of you listening that have no idea what we're talking about, it's the Special Operations Air Regiment. It's basically all of the sexy helicopter work that you see that flies all of our special operations guys around, and they're like fucking Jedis in those things. They're guys that typically have 20 plus years of experience. They were enlisted before. In many cases, one of the guys I'm actually going to have on the show he was a SEAL for a while, and then went over and became a 60 pilot in the TF-160, and so a lot of those guys, as warrant officers that have time as an operator, or being at least close to those units to draw from when they're going in and out, and that's pretty advantageous, as you can imagine. If you've got a pilot that knows what it's like to be in the back of the aircraft doing what they do, that just rounds out the level of expertise to a level that's it's hard to even wrap your fucking mind around, coupled with 40,000 hours of night vision flying and all over the world. Like they're incredible. But in terms of were you ever in positions where kind of you fucked it up, where like you would forecast something or give them advice and it was wrong? Because, you know, I know Chandler's sitting here thinking, dude, I watch the weather. Those guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's what I think half the time. Like, how do you fuck that up? It was supposed to rain today. It didn't. What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
how many times did that happen where you were the turd in the punch bowl fucking everything up?
No, I'm pretty proud of my weather ability. As weird as that sounds, I did strand some.
That sounds like a good pickup line.
It's weird, yeah. It really works. That's why my wife married me.
Yeah.
I stranded some guys at a base one time because they were late, and I didn't tell them that if they were going to be late, there was a snowstorm moving in.
Yeah.
And so I remember they called me, and they were like, "Bro, what happened?" And I was like, "I told you guys were late." And he's like, "Well, you could have told us that like if we were 3 minutes late, we weren't going to make it."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, you're right." So I jacked that up. And then I ended up having to stay up for like 56 hours because I didn't go to bed until they got back.
Is that something where you knew it would snow, or just like you didn't even look at it because you figured they wouldn't be late?
Yeah, I mean, you spend working for an organization like that, like I'm trying my hardest to make sure I know everything that's happening.
Yeah.
So I knew it was coming in, but like I was looking at the timelines, and these guys are notorious for being on their time.
Yeah.
So
They were only 3 minutes late and got caught in the snowstorm. Is
they
that how?
were like 30 minutes late.
Yeah.
But like they were flying and they could see it moving in, and I was like, if you would have been on time, you know. But it was still my bad for not telling him. So, you know, that's one of those things that there's a bunch of missions lined up. They need to get back to where they need to be, and so I just sat there taking a call every 30 minutes. Is it clear? No. Is it clear? No.
Yeah.
But for those guys, it wasn't. It was easy.
Well, so that leads me to naturally think, why do so many of the dipshits on the news get it wrong so often?
I don't know. They don't care.
Is that what it is? Just fucking apathy?
Well, and they're forecasting for large areas, and the way that civilians forecast for civilians is much different. You know, like a 30% chance of rain means something like 30% of that area could see rain during this long period of time. Where I'm taking a small amount of time at certain flight levels for particular missions and telling them exactly what's going to happen during those times.
So yours is ultra specific, whereas they're hyper specific, whereas theirs is kind of ultra generic.
Right.
All right, well, that makes sense. Do you ever like watch the news and talk shit to the same way that like I would watch a fucking movie and critique tactics? Do you ever watch fucking
Oh yeah.
meteorologists and talk a bunch of shit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a nerd. I'll look at my phone, and the tendency for all the weather models that are run by the computers is they're always trying to catch up, or they're trying to forecast into a certain condition.
Yeah.
And so my everybody around me will be like, "You're such a nerd," but like you'll see if something happens and the event was way worse, or it didn't happen the way that it was supposed to, according to the computer, it will adjust and then over forecast that event next time.
Huh.
And unless you're tracking all these things, you're going to be like, "Oh man, it's going to be like 32 degrees tomorrow." I'm like, it's not going to be 32. That's 5 degrees off.
Hurricanes.
We don't do hurricanes.
You don't fuck with hurricanes?
That's a specialty thing for the NOAA folks.
Yeah.
So when I was regular weather, we were forecasting for hurricane prone areas. And it was kind of nice because whenever there was a hurricane that was popped up heading towards land, we didn't have to do anything. Our forecasts were just given to us.
Yeah. Tornadoes, right? I'm from fucking northern Iowa originally. The movie Twister was filmed like an hour from where I grew up.
The movie was super accurate, by the way.
Was it?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, here's me with the hook, line, and sinker. No shit? No, not really. Give me the dipshits version of how a tornado works.
It's just...
Or why it happens, how it happens, I guess.
Yeah, it's just air at different levels moving in different directions. So especially in that section of the country, you can have low-level jets. So your low-level jet, if it's like at 5,000 or 3,000 feet, and then you have your polar front jet or your main jet over the top, and they're like crossed. And then you have a bunch of other effects. You're going to get that rotational thing going on. So in a nutshell, that's...
And is the gist of size, intensity, whatever, dependent on how thorough those directions are, like how massive they are and how fast they are, or how does that?
Right. So typically they're associated with like a cold front. If I remember this right, it's been a while since I actually did weather. So you have a lot of different dynamics. You have cold air, warm air, and then you have your jets moving in different directions. So yeah, the stronger those jets are, and the more they intersect, and the more hot and cold air that's mixing together, the worse it's going to be.
Is there anything that you can think of that man could do, and I'm sure there's not or there would be, but to disrupt that, like that you could drop into, like, you know, because you can fly above a tornado, right? And it's
You can fly above a hurricane. Now, usually when you're having tornadoes, you're having cloud tops like that busted through the highest level where they usually get capped off at. So if you're looking at a thunderstorm, usually you see them hit the tropopause, and that's where you get those clouds that shoot off, and that we call that the anvil. If you shoot through the tropopause is when you're usually going to get your severe weather, like your big hail and all that other stuff. So high cloud tops are typically associated with those types of storms, where hurricanes are pretty shallow.
Is from a tornado standpoint, is there an average height that they're at, or is it?
I don't
Am
know.
I stumping you?
Yeah. I mean, I could just pretend 45,000 feet is where the average height for the cloud tops.
I mean, would it be that high?
They go way up.
No shit.
Yep.
So basically anything, like if you're fucking around above that, it's going to fuck you up if you're in any type of aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those up and down drafts are wicked bad.
Yeah. Rock and roll. So you do 2 TF-160 deployments, super weather heavy. What comes after that?
Then I did a CRIF rotation.
What is that?
The Crisis Response Force with the 7th Special Forces Group. So SOC South decided that they wanted the full Air Force Special Tactics package. And so we'd never had a weather guy up there before. So because they had to send someone, they sent me. And so I went up there with them and did some good stuff and kind of set up that program, which since has been, they got rid of their CRIFs. So it was all for nothing-ish. But I learned a lot. I was with the Intel Fusion Cell. And we actually nailed a forecast down in Belize and got guys out.
Oh, no shit.
We only had like a 30-minute window to get the birds in there to get these guys out.
Wow.
It was a training exercise, right? But they went black on water and food and everything. And I remember the general walking up to me and being like, "You sure this is the time that we can get these guys out?" And that's the hardest part of being a weather guy, is because nothing is really for certain.
Yeah.
And you just have to like look at them and be like, "Yep."
Sure as fuck is.
Yep.
And so they bought it, but it worked out, huh?
It worked out.
Yeah. God damn. So what did you do after that?
And then I became I went to the 23rd Special Tactics Squadron. So we used to all have our own squadron as Special Operations Weather guys, and then we integrated with the combat controllers and the pararescue guys, the 2 series units. And then for my next rotation, I kind of delved into the combat control world a little bit, and I got a survey cert so I could survey airfields overseas. And that course was a pain in the brain. And then I was the team sergeant for that team, and then also I was the weather guy for that team. So I kind of wore 3 hats on my last rotation as we were kind of prepping for the Syria invasion.
Where were you at?
We staged out of Kuwait.
Oh, okay.
And then we were a mobile force.
Can you say where you went?
We went a number of places. Well, I went to Iraq. And we went and did a survey up there. That actually linked up with a team of SEALs to go up there. They were our security force. We needed to go survey an old base that had been overrun and looked like The Walking Dead up there. We'd been gone from most of these places for about 5 years. So we jumped in some helicopters and picked up the SEALs and went out there and did some work. And that was a good time. That was kind of from the very top. They asked us to do that. And then, some stuff in other places.
Do you know ballpark what year that or when that was? Can you say?
15.
So the at that time then the Syria stuff was pretty heavy.
It was a lot of the air campaign in Syria was heavy.
Yeah.
The ground campaign was not, and we were still not putting too many boots on the ground even in Iraq. To get some of our equipment into Iraq took some ingenuity or some creativity, I'll say, because there were just a lot of rules at the time. But we were able to get that mission accomplished.
With that, excuse me while I dump this. By the way, just a real quick shout out to one of our sponsors. It's a new flavor, Afterburner Orange, and it's really goddamn good. So I'm pouring that into a fucking cup here, so bear with me. When you were there, were there any things of note that you can talk about gunfight-wise or getting into some hairy shit-wise, or was it all pretty benign?
No, I mean, we weren't there to fight. We were there to set up, make sure the airfields and everything were ready for the next the push. So we set up weather sensors and we surveyed airfields, and it was cool. We did a lot of stuff in like civilian clothes and met some interesting people. But our job wasn't to fight. In Iraq, I think someone said, like we actually embedded or some conventional Air Force guys went on that survey mission with us. They thought we got shot at. I don't think we got shot at. They just wanted to say that we got shot at. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
No, I think I heard that.
Yeah.
That's fucking funny. Goddamn Air Force guys.
I know. We're the worst.
So after that, is that when you got into the SR stuff that you are doing now or of fairly recent?
Yep. Well, I came back to San Antonio. I worked as an instructor for a few things. We set up our own prep course, which mirrored, in many ways, the NSW prep course prior to the pipeline. And then I got a phone call, I think in 2018, from my boy up at the Pentagon. Is like, hey, we're not weather guys anymore. We're SR dudes. So
really
make it happen.
So the whole fucking pipeline is now SR as opposed to SOW?
Yep.
No shit.
So
what kind of a transition does that entail then? I mean, is there a lot more SR specific training in that pipeline or like, can you talk about that?
Yeah. So for the weather stuff that we kept was mostly observations, because if you look doctrinally, we need weather observations as part of special reconnaissance. It's just part of the package. It's not, specific to the Air Force. It's part of your planning process. But the rest of everything, we had to incorporate a lot of the reconnaissance, baseline reconnaissance skill sets. And then we're getting into the SWAS, the drones, and then the long range shooting, formalizing all those things, which a lot of our guys on team had been doing for a long time anyway. But as we're calling ourselves recce guys now, we're formalizing a lot of those processes. So like we have paperwork that says, hey, this is what we do and how we train. We had to scrap the entire old one, build the entire new one, build the new pipeline. So it's a multi-year process. It's responsible for most of my gray hair, I think.
Yeah, I don't see any of it.
There's some.
You're not much younger than I am, right?
I'm 38.
Yeah. You look like you're about 20 years younger than I am. That must be the Air Force fucking chow. So with that, then it sounds like they're taking the weather capability and essentially keeping that as part of what you do, but turning it into more of a kind of a special operations type of fit where they're getting more juice out of the squeeze, so to speak. Is that accurate?
Right. So we used to belong to weather, and we don't belong to weather anymore. So now we're just getting after the line items that we need to get after. We still work for the Air Force. So like people will ask me, what's the difference? Why do we need you guys if we have Force Recon or the Rangers and all these other guys that go out there and do this reconnaissance stuff? It's like, well, we have a different area of focus, and we're focusing on that future fight. So the beyond like the baseline capabilities, reconnaissance capabilities, we're going to get into a lot of the technological stuff that we need to get into to compete with our near peers. I
gotcha. And how much of that can you talk about, or is that pretty tight-lipped?
I mean, a little bit. We talk about it on the my podcast with the cyber stuff, the ASOT stuff, the signal stuff. Like when you're dealing with people that are at the same level or close to your level technologically, like that's where the money is made. So if we need to get air assets into a place, we need to know what we're dealing with. We need to know how to disable those anti-aircraft capabilities, whether they're kinetic or not, and then establish our airhead and move in from there.
Yeah. I know that this isn't reflective of the Air Force. From your perspective, you know what I'm going to ask? You're already cringing.
I don't know. I'm scared.
I shouldn't have prefaced it with this isn't part of the Air Force. I mean, who country-wise, as an active duty Air Force guy, kind of in the weeds with stuff like that, what opposing country scares you the most?
China. China's really good at taking tech and reverse engineering it or stealing tech. So that they're making a lot of moves right now. The Russians are pretty good at what they do. There's some other countries that have a lot of money that have tech, but China is just, they have a plan,
Well, it's like a long game plan too,
right.
It's not, I mean, and that's just on that side. I mean, if you look at, how many businesses in this country they've bought over the last 20 years, how much real estate, how much, logistics and supply pieces of the American puzzle that they now own and control. And that's fucking Sun Tzu. Step one is, like if you choke off the ability to resupply everything, power and water and food, and, like you don't even need to fight them,
Yeah.
it troubles me that so few people pay attention to stuff like that. But it sounds like, so this is kind of what you're doing now still in terms of your career. I would like to transition a little bit into kind of the feeling, the morale, the air, if you will, of the military, at least as it relates to your perspective of it, of kind of what the overall consensus and feeling is now. With I guess I'm curious, having been out now for a while, what's the sense that you get, I guess, in terms of what troop morale is collectively, the way that you see it, with Trump being out of office when he was in office versus Biden getting elected, those types of things. What's your pulse on that?
I think the younger guys tend to care more about these things than the older guys. I've been through a few different presidencies, and it's always weird trying to talk around it. And as soon as someone is sworn as the president, as an active duty member, I'm like, they're the boss. And no matter who's president, I've never said anything bad publicly about any of these people. But
well, go ahead and talk shit now.
Yeah, let's do it, right? How many listeners do you have? Not much trouble in
nobody's listening. It's all right.
But we're so mission focused on our side that it doesn't matter. And soft. And if you're good at your job, you're always going to have a mission. So most of my guys are pretty good, and I think we're just moving forward. There's different things that change every time a new president. There's like more money. There's less money. Money gets moved from here to there. And it's a constant state of chaos when it comes to everything, because everybody's trying to get after that pie and get their mission accomplished. But
what would you say the younger guys are feeling then? What's their collective
I guess it depends on which side of the political fence that they sit on,
Is there one that's more prominent than the other, or is it pretty split?
In my opinion, I would say more guys sit on the red side.
Yeah. So more of the younger guys are pissed right now then, in other words.
I mean, I'm not doing surveys of the young guys.
I mean,
I'm trying to stay out of trouble here, Mike. You're trying to get me into trouble.
I'm trying to drag
politics.
you right the fuck in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, so it's fascinating for me, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners, because you're the first active duty guy that we've had on. I mean, I've had a lot of military guys on, none that were currently serving, and I know similarly, like when I came in, Clinton was fucking president.
Yep.
So I did an entire enlistment under Clinton, and then 2 full enlistments under Bush, and I got out as Obama was taking over. And so, but then I also, I came back and was a trainer on the West Coast for the SEAL K-9 program a couple of years into Obama's first term, and I was out there in 11 and 12, after he'd been out in the stark contrast that I saw, and this isn't me, taking a political side. This is just the reality of the morale and supply and logistics and budgeting and funding and all that stuff was noticeably different. Just plain and simple, the guys were not as happy. The gear and funding and good deal trips and training locations and all that stuff had been pared down noticeably. Because I was in a unique position to have seen it that way with Clinton. It was fairly bare bones then. Bush comes in, 9/11 happens, golden cruise box for 8 years. It's just like
fucking, you want money?
Yeah, Uncle Sam and his blank fucking checkbook, which spoiled everybody to a certain extent. And then Obama comes in, I step out for 2 years, I come back, and it was just like, holy shit, because I had the, if you want to call it a luxury, or just the unique perspective of coming back to the spot that I was at, so it wasn't like I was going to a different part of the country to a different base. I came back literally to the same fucking base I was on my entire career, just 2 years after Obama had taken over, and it was noticeably different and not at all in any good ways. That was, is that anecdotal because it's one perspective, one experience? Yes. But I can't imagine that that's the only fucking place that was the case. And this isn't, me trying to find a reason to talk shit about Obama. It's just, that was what I noticed, and I'm curious, I guess. It's not like it's any secret that traditionally most liberal presidents don't like funding the military the way that most Republican presidents like funding the military. And so that's a huge difference maker for our armed services. But in kind of that same vein, I'm curious, COVID-wise, it seems like there's a bit of a crossroads where, there's this virus and there's these recommendations that change, like the weather. Had to throw that in there. And, but like how much of it collectively is from your perspective militarily, are people like, dude, are you fucking kidding me? This is dumb as fuck. And they're just doing it anyway. Like, do people take it more serious? What does that look like?
I mean, we get our marching orders. COVID, it's jacked up some stuff, but we made, within our community, the decision was made, we're just going to keep training and we're going to get as much stuff done as we possibly can. So, and it's gone through cycles, right? So every once in a while you're like, hey, I'm going to go up to, TDY to this place. And they're like, well, the rules are this. And the rules keep changing. And I think that's the most frustrating part is like, if I go here and I come back, do I have to quarantine for 14 days? Like last week, no. This week, yes.
Yeah.
So I think the military we're just trying to keep up with the rules. But we're still training everybody and we're testing a ton of people coming in. We at Lackland, we get people from all over the country. Every week a new shipment comes in. So it's a little crazy, but we're just pushing forward and doing what we can with what we've got.
So it's more reactive to, are you guys following CDC guidelines, or does DOD have their own shit, or do you even know? Right.
Well, I think CDC comes out with their thing and we try to follow that as best we can. But, the chains of command are weird right now when it comes to that. But so, when it comes down to our level as the enlisted folks, it's just like march off and do.
Yeah. Amen. You mentioned Lackland, which is also where the military working dog unit is at. Do you, other than just seeing them around, do you have any involvement with them whatsoever? Or?
No, they get really mad though when we're running and rucking students through their area.
Firing all the dogs up?
Yeah.
Getting them all spun the fuck up? Yeah, I can imagine.
I did my first duty station. I went to Shaw Air Force Base when I was a regular weather guy, and we got a tour of the base, and I was able to get in the bite suit and do they call it the bravery test, where they got one of the dogs all riled up, and he's like 20 yards away from me. And the test is whether or not you flinch before he grabs your arm.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, first they're like, hey, when he pulls you down, tuck your neck into the suit in case he loses control and goes for your neck. I'm like, that's not the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. But I'll never forget that pressure, even through that suit that dog put on my wrist. It was insane.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one thing I've mentioned it a few times. I won't beat the dead horse, but for sure, it's until you've experienced it, it's hard to describe it to somebody and convey it accurately enough for them to truly understand how capable those fucking dogs are. And I always laugh when people are like, well, I'll give them this arm and then I'll fucking jam my hand down their throat or whatever. And it's like, that's akin to saying like, I'm gonna take a cordless fucking 18-volt power drill with a wood bit on it, and put it on full fucking spin, and I'm gonna grab it and stop it. Like that's what you're gonna do to your fucking hand, Like
right.
It doesn't work that way. But it's neat that you got to experience that. All right, so now, as you're kind of closing out your military career, what for you now? I know you're the host of the podcast. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. But what is your plan? Short term, ultimately getting out. Like, are you planning on getting out right at 20, or what are you doing?
I'm gonna end up just over 20 right now. The plan is you have to wear your rank for 3 years before you get out. So I just barely ranked up. So
where are you at now, rank wise?
8.
E8.
Yep.
God damn, fucking senior chief in the Navy.
Yep.
What do you call that in the Air Force?
Senior master sergeant.
Is that right? That's a lot. That's too many words.
It's a lot.
Like,
it's weird.
Can it just be senior or master? Senior master seems redundant.
I think people call you senior. I'm not sure that you're allowed to call people senior anymore, though. But
so what is an E9 called then?
Chief Master Sergeant.
Sergeant, right?
Sergeant.
Yeah. All right.
Excuse me. I've been in for a while.
Yeah. No. Hey, that's how they all say it. I don't say it that way because there aren't any sergeants in the Navy. But
yeah.
So senior master sergeant, and then chief master sergeant.
Right.
Yeah. Just does that not seem redundant? Am I an asshole?
That's the way they do it. I don't know. I'm just looking for the E8 pay and getting out in 3 years, and then I think with the One's Ready thing. So we started One's Ready to kind of get the word and motivate guys out there that are thinking about Air Force Special Warfare, or at least let them know that it exists, because we're super small compared to the other sister service guys, but we have a pretty unique mission sets, skill sets, and so one day Brian called me and was like, "You want to do this thing?" And I was like, yeah. And he got Jared and Aaron involved. So we got 2 pararescue guys, a combat controller, and myself. and we just go on there. We can't get paid because we're still active duty.
That's bullshit.
So we've dumped a lot of our own personal resources and time into this thing. So I think once I retire, I want to replace myself with somebody else and kind of create a path to entrepreneurship through the company. So I don't want to be that guy like 5 years after I'm out still talking about the training pipeline. Like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I'd like to gift a piece of the company to my replacement, and then, get out there and see what else there is in the world.
Yeah. What, in terms of the numbers, is it still right at 150 of how many of you there are in terms of
we're
pipeline?
less than that.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get people in the door, the right people, the qualified people. And then, combat control there's in the mid hundreds, and there's a few pararescue guys out there, and then TAC-P is pretty big.
Are pararescues at the highest number wise of all of Air Force Special Operations?
So we call it special warfare now because it's weird. We're not like a Green Beret team or a SEAL team where we're all homogenous. So we're all very separate. So TAC-Ps are, most of their job is on the conventional side, but they do have soft guys down at working with people. And then pararescue is the same way. They have a conventional mission and a soft mission, where combat control and SR are special operations only. Okay. So we came up with this kind of blanket term for all these things that are fairly similar in training called Air Force Special Warfare. We didn't steal it from the Navy. So that's what it is. But TAC-Ps have the most people, and then pararescue, combat control, and then SR.
Okay. There's got to be some shit talking of who's the baddest of, is there one crew that's kind of regarded as like the fucking big dicks of the crew, or what?
Pararescue. So TAC-Ps, there's more of them, but because they have so much stuff on the conventional side, that's what we jab at them for, and they don't do as much swimming, so we tell them they're afraid of the water. Yeah. Pararescue, they're cool, but you
can talk shit.
You have this hero complex, like you're gonna go save people. I've never had my life saved by a pararescueman, but I have had a JTAC, I'm pretty sure, saved my life on multiple occasions. So I lean more towards the combat control side. And when you look at the high level medals, I think combat control guys kind of strut around. Yeah. Because
training pipeline wise, pararescue is probably the most notorious for it being the toughest training, would you say? Or
yes. Traditionally. So now, but we've taken all of our pipelines and made them the same in the beginning before we branch out into our specialties.
So everybody goes through the same fucking, that's fucking good way to do it. I can only imagine that garners a little more respect collectively too, right? Where it's like everybody's been through the same shit. So I'm sure there's still plenty of shit talking, but less of it's warranted, at least at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the reasons I care so much about training and these kinds of things is because I am that guy that I was in special operations, but I wasn't high, vetted. I went through airborne and SEER, and then I showed up at Bragg. Yeah. And so I didn't feel comfortable really wearing my beret until after my first rotation, and even then it's like, but it's just a weird thing. So it's good for me to see, and I'm super passionate about the training side of the house to make sure everybody goes through that process, has the training and equipment that they need before they get themselves in those hairy situations. So
do all is it considered AFSOC or do you consider it Air Force Special Warfare now?
So AFSOC is just our SOCOM component. So all combat control and SR are under AFSOC. But like when we talk collectively, it's Air Force Special Warfare. It's kind of weird.
So do all Air Force Special Warfare operators wear a gray beret?
No. So the PJs, pararescue wears maroon, combat control is scarlet, we're gray, and TAC-Ps are black.
What the fuck is the difference between maroon and scarlet?
I don't know. Maroon at scarlet's just like bright red. So you can see a combat controller from like 3 clicks away.
That's ironic.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. They stand out there. And
it's blood red.
All right, so they're scarlet. PJs are maroon. You guys are gray.
Right.
And who's black?
The TAC-Ps.
TAC-Ps. I got it. It's a lot of shit that I'm learning, even though I've worked with primarily CCT guys is the gist. We had a really fucking good CCT guy with us on Iraq deployment. He was fucking awesome. For sure saved our ass. It was amazing having him there. He's fucking super good. But
remember the name?
I don't. I'm trying to think. We didn't call him by his name. It was some cheese dick fucking nickname that we gave him, and I don't remember it. I will say he had the no shit, like, it was like you pulled him out of an 80s recruiting video. Like he had that mustache.
Oh, nice.
And hair, like just the whole look. Like he had that cheesy 80s fucking, military recruiting poster fucking look. But great fucking dude. I wish I remembered his goddamn name. Chandler, tell me, do you have a fucking weather question for our guest? Nothing?
Oh, man. Well, we're Midwest guys, so we know tornadoes. I don't think, is there really any other place in the world that...
I mean, shit, we get tornadoes down here all the time, yeah.
But I mean, outside, this is still considered the alley. So what are some like intense, or are there any specialized intense weather scenarios that are obviously that we don't experience here?
Dust events. I think everybody's seen the movies that, what is that? It's the big old haboob. It's dust. So in Afghanistan, it's a pain because you'll get that system come down from the west edge, go through the red desert and push all that dust up through those valleys to the east. And then once that dust is sitting there, like it's so fine, you'll have valleys that have zero visibility for days or weeks, and it just sits there. So dust is a huge concern. I know in Iraq it's a huge concern, but those are the big ones that I've experienced. Besides just like the thunderstorms and rain and snow and all that other stuff.
It's a great question. Appreciate the answer. One thing that makes me think of, you mentioned west to east. Do weather systems and patterns typically go from one direction to the next in most areas, or is it kind of fucking just depends?
Yeah, I mean, typically, the polar front jet in the northern hemisphere goes that direction. So when you learn about it in weather school, we take your classic coming off the Rockies, low forms, and sweeps across the country. So
I guess here as an example, like do most systems move from one direction to the next, or can they come from everywhere and do percentage wise kind of from all over? Yeah,
well, here your major systems are going to come from the west, but once you get down to the south southern United States area, you'll have this thing where the fronts kind of die out. They lose energy as the cold air pushes down, and then you'll get this north to south waffling of this barrier. And so that's when you'll get like you'll be like, oh, it's just like raining for 2 weeks, and then you'll get like thunderstorm type activity, and then it'll clear out, and then it'll just keep going until that thing completely goes away and that air kind of comes together and becomes one air mass.
Yeah, that's some fascinating. Yeah, no, for sure. Do you have any desire to be like a fucking celebrity meteorologist on TV or what?
No,
nothing.
No.
I think there's a fucking career there for you. You had another one?
I've had enough jokes about weather.com to last me the rest of my life.
No such thing. Chandler, what else you got?
What are some like major attributes to look out for if there's an ever looming golden shower that's approaching?
The golden shower?
Now, by golden shower, what are we talking about? Did we just transfer over into a totally different podcast?
No,
Do you know what golden shower is?
Yeah.
You tell me what you think a golden shower is.
I mean, I've never experienced one. That's why I'm asking the professionals.
I am not a professional on that subject.
Zach, anything?
I don't know anything about that. Nope.
Yeah,
Don't know anything.
You're a millennial. You still don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Zach? Is there a question that you've always wanted to ask a weatherman that now you have the opportunity?
I wish I did, but I don't. I'd want to know more about your service, but you kind of covered it. I got a lot of good stuff over here.
How did you listen to this entire thing and not come up with one goddamn question?
I'm taking a lot of notes over here, Mike. I got a lot going on. You wouldn't believe it.
Let's get off Pornhub. All right. We're trying to wrap the show up.
All right.
All right. So in terms of you're going to have somebody replace you or you're looking to have somebody replace you and then venture off, anything that you have ideas wise of what you want to do when you grow up?
I mean, we kind of started this whole media thing with One's Ready. So, I mean, I would love to go out there and like review shooting schools and sit down with the owners and try to, help out all those people out. And then, I don't know, maybe find something to make or whatever. But I'm just, where I tend to fit is pumping other people up, or training. I love training. You learn so much about yourself as a person when you have that almost godlike control over another human being. And it's a weird thing. So I like getting into people's brains and trying to unlock their potential. So I'll probably do something with training and then see what else One's Ready has for me or branch off LLCs from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so the podcast, as you probably ascertained, is called One's Ready. Check it out. I'm assuming it's on all the usual suspects. So check that out. To me, it's a fascinating world that so few people know about, myself included. So I learned a lot today, and I have no doubt the listener did. And again, I want to kind of reiterate, how unique and elite of a group you guys are, but also how legitimately important it is. All jokes aside, it's fun to fuck with the weatherman, so to speak, but it's important shit. Before we close out here, I do want to mention and show to the audience, if you're watching on YouTube, is he brought a coin, and if I'm going to hold that up. So if you could explain the coin, where it came from as much as you can. I know some of it details you can't, but
yeah. So it's the back end of a 30 millimeter shell from an AC-130. And when we were staging out of Kuwait, we were kind of co-located with the AC-130 folks, and we helped them out with some stuff, and they helped us out with some stuff. And then this is from a flight they took into Syria to support some people doing some really cool stuff. So we got to see the video, and they gave us all these coins because we were kind of had this. We didn't actually work together, but you know how it is. You get overseas and, hey, is there anything we can do? And they were really cool about it. So they gave us all one of those coins. And, I'm not one of those people that tries to hold on to everything. I give books away and all that other stuff. So I thought that was fairly unique, and you could put it on your thing.
I can very comfortably say that this is the coolest and most unique coin anybody's ever given me, and one that for 1,000% sure I will cherish and hold dear my whole fucking life. This is awesome. To know that this is the back of a 30 millimeter that smoked somebody's ass in fucking Syria is beyond priceless, and I can't thank you enough for bringing it. That's a cool fucking story, man. I love it. No worries. All right, so last but certainly not least, I want to again thank you for coming. Thanks for driving all the way up and spending the time. I know being on active duty, especially right now, it's not easy to get off base and travel outside of your op area. So I appreciate you taking the time. I'd like to take a quick second to shout out and thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Origin Labs and Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is a great product. He's got a ton of products actually within the Jocko Fuel line. The guests and I enjoy them on the show. And outside, I take a lot of the supplements. I've got some of the Origin Lab jeans, boots, gis, and it's just all around American industry. They do a fantastic job really re-revolutionizing American industry from start to finish. It's all American made, all American sourced. Everything start to finish is made right there in-house, and they really do a phenomenal job creating the products and fulfilling the whole ball of wax. They've been a huge supporter of the Mic Drop podcast for a while now, and I really can't thank Jocko Fuel and Origin Labs enough for the job that they do for us, and so thank you to you guys. I'd like to take a second to shout out our newest sponsor, which is Project Warpath. This is a Navy SEAL-owned company that provides apparel with a pretty edgy feel, and it's a good friend of mine that runs it out of California, and just overall a great outfit. They've got a whole line of different shirts, one of which is arguably my favorite, which is Epstein Didn't Kill Himself. Wonder where that one came from. And but yeah, there's Hillary Clinton killed my friends. There's a bunch of pretty edgy and cool patriotic sayings on T-shirts with good design, good high quality, and it's one that I'm actually wearing right now. So I appreciate them sponsoring the show. Again, that's Project Warpath. You can get all their stuff online, and the shipping and customer service is top notch, quality product, and you're supporting a veteran-owned business. So shout out to Project Warpath. Go check their stuff out. I'd also like to say thank you to our other sponsor, Resilience Premium CBD. Resilience is excited to offer all Mic Drop listeners a 20% off discount on all products for 2 weeks from when this podcast is live using the discount code MICDROP at checkout. That's 2 words, MICDROP at checkout. I'd also like to say that Resilience is a great company that works in conjunction with Trico CBD, and all military veterans and first responders receive 35% off. Yes, that's 35% off for all military veterans and first responders, and that's through the Military and First Responders Program. You just have to sign up at resilientcbd.com/military first responders discount. In terms of about Resilience, generally speaking, it's a premium CBD that I use. Again, it works in conjunction with the Tricos brand for the everyday athlete. That's www.resilientcbd.com. And Resilience was really born with the founders who are military veterans as well, personally experienced the effects and impact that CBD had on their own mental and physical obstacles. Their focus was sharper, mental stress was calmed, fitness stamina increased, and their bodies felt less pain, inflammation after super intense workouts. A lot of times most people and people are able to either wean off entirely or significantly reduce pain management therapy. This is a shared vision among the founders that this incredible supplement had not only changed their lives, but had the power to provide unbelievable benefits to family, friends, athletes, fellow veterans, and ultimately the entire fitness community. So big shout out to Resilience for their product as well as the Trico stuff. We sure appreciate their support. To you, the listener, again, one quick thing is I've had I don't know how many messages saying, dude, it's been over a month. Like, are you putting shit on pause? What's going on? Why haven't you released stuff? For me, there's two things. One, it's quality over quantity. I could put a show out fucking twice a week. To me, like, I'm at a point where I've done enough of them to where, I don't want to just continue to have the same types of guests on all the time where it's just the exact same stuff. But also, I think further and more importantly is that, this isn't what I do for a living either. Yes, it's a component of what I do, but this isn't how I pay bills and keep the lights on and everything else. This is something that I enjoy doing. I love the positive feedback and the huge following that it's turned into. But it's not a nationally syndicated show where this is what I do for a living and I have a booking agent and all this other shit going on. And this is my primary gig. My primary gig is dogs still and will be for a while, both in the physical form and in products and training and in the online training, you name it, teamdog.pet. And, so that's what I do for a living. So there are times in the last couple months has been no exception where I get really fucking busy with what I do for a living that actually puts food on the table for my family. And that's what I've been doing. So in essence, suck it. And but we will get a couple episodes out this month, so you can bet your sweet ass that there'll be more coming. So life happens. That's the deal. Thanks for playing. Go choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.